These guys fly in and out. The adults fly in and out of their burrows at night. And then when it comes time for the fledglings to fledge, they leave their burrow completely alone. They have no parental guidance. This is their first flight to the open ocean. If it's a clear night with a beautiful moon, they can see well. They just fly directly out to sea. There's very little that will confuse them. However, on overcast nights or on nights that there's a new moon or no moon, there are the lights of people confuse them. So what happens is they get drawn into areas and they'll circle and they'll come to the ground all confused. Once they're on the ground, they have a very difficult time getting up off the ground. Their legs are positioned far back on their body. They can't do a direct takeoff like you could see, say, a duck or a goose do. They need an open space, lots of wind, or a cliff to jump off of to get that wind under their wings to get going. They have a high wind speed. Or a high airspeed, so they need that open space. If you watch them on the ocean, they run across the surface of the ocean to get air. So if they come down in areas where they can't get out of, like in parking lots or fenced-in areas, backyards, they can't get out of there, and then they become prone to getting caught by cats, caught by dogs, getting run over by cars on the road. They're very naive. They're not. They evolved with no terrestrial predators, so they don't have defenses against these. So, once they're down, they're very vulnerable, and that's when we hope that you, the viewer, will, find them, pick them up, clean towel, take them to the nearest aid station, and put them in the aid station for us.
Yeah, and I want to commend the people of Kauai because whether you're a horse lover or a cat lover or a dog lover or a pet owner, I think everybody loves the shearwaters, knowing that they can make a difference. Now, it's very difficult because not being a ornithologist or a veterinarian, it's hard to say what the injury may be as far as them running into a wire or a shoulder, or how do you tell? Can you tell right off the bat what might be the injury extent?
Sometimes we can see it right off the bat. There's blood present. The bird's holding itself in an odd way. There are other things that we may not see unless we watch them with a little more intensity. Head trauma can be hidden until we watch them. Say we put them on our conditioning pools and we watch their behavior, so we can see that at that point. There's telltale signs, but not every injury is external. So when we do a exam on the birds, we palpate for fractures, broken bones. We look for areas of blood. We make certain that everything is functioning, because these birds, they're going into a very harsh environment. They need to be perfect to be able to survive. They're going out there, they don't have parental guidance, they have to learn to fish, so the fat reserves that they have on them that their parents for several months fought hard to put on them by feeding them, that's what sustains them until they can figure out how to do what they need to do out there.
And when they figure out to know what they need to do when they're out there, a couple 5, 6, 7, 8 years thereafter, they can come back to the island of Kauai. And interestingly speaking, I don't know how Mother Nature works, but they'll come back pretty much to their original burrow site that they had, and remember using their feet, if you will, that has rough edges that they can climb, and that beak that you made mention about earlier can help them get the height that they need to take that launch out to sea.
That's correct. Yeah, these guys can climb quite well. We have to make certain that they stay in our pools, actually, because if they get purchase on the netting, they can climb straight up the netting very, very quickly. They're pretty amazing, as we keep saying. They when they head out to sea, they won't come back to land for at least 2 to 3 years, and even then they won't start breeding until they're about 5 or 6 years old. So they might come back, start prospecting for a mate, but they won't start breeding until they're about 5 or 6. But even the fact that these guys don't come back to land is amazing in itself. They spend their life on the open ocean. The only reason they need to come to land is to breed. They have to put their eggs somewhere.
That is truly amazing. When you say they need to put their eggs somewhere, you let us know that there's only one egg, so the survival rate is just against all odds in general.
Yeah, they only have one egg per year. Both parents share incubation duties, and so they will, the male and female will switch off on the incubation duties. 2 months later, the chick will hatch, and then both parents also share in the feeding duties as well. So it does take both parents to raise a chick, and it's a single chick. If they lose their egg or their chick at any point in the breeding system cycle, they will not renest. Some other smaller species that have more babies, they quite often will renest. These birds will not. So that's it for the year for that pair.
If you just joined us, I'm with our coordinator for SOS Save Our Shearwaters, Tracy Anderson. One of the most interesting comments that you gave to us years ago was the fact that when we see a downed bird, our hands need to be dry and clean. And you explained that because some people use hand lotion for moisturizers, or the visitors may be using sunscreen or suntan lotion or what have you. But that small parts of oils can actually penetrate the coating and the feathers. Can you explain that to us?
Sure. So what happens is any contaminant on their feathers, so be it some santan lotion, has oil base on it, if it gets onto the bird, it compromises the integrity of the feathers, so the little barbicels and everything can't lock together. And what happens then, it becomes the water. Any water that is over that area will absorb into the feather structure, and then into the down. And the down is what keeps them the down is what keeps them warm, and then the outer feathers is what keeps them dry. So if there is a spot in the outer feathers that the water can penetrate, then it gets into their down and it makes them cold. It makes them cold. It makes them non-waterproof. If they're on the open ocean, they don't want to dive because that they're getting cold, hypothermic, and they can succumb to a couple of different. They can succumb from starvation and hypothermia at that point. So we want to make certain that if you do find a bird, if your hands you can't wash your hands before picking up, which a lot of people can't, just find a piece of like a t-shirt or a towel that you have and put it over the bird so that you're not contacting it directly. So that's just so that you can protect the bird from any oils or anything on your hands.
And by the way, I would really highly encourage people to get involved, because if you can save a shearwater, I mean, how cool is that? If you could find a bird, you can grab the bird, a bird that's been coming to Kauai for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, just for them to make it to land, you talk a little bit about it being cold. I would imagine that they're in sub-zero freezing temperatures, not only out in the open ocean, but obviously when they dive down under.
Yeah, they're somewhat temperate birds, so they don't go to the poles like some of our other species do. But it's a lot colder. The ocean water temperature is a lot colder than a body temperature, obviously. So they can succumb relatively quickly with the chill. So. Even at the surface, something might be looking good, but once you go dive, the pressure pushes on the feathers, and any small imperfection will push water into the down again. So, their feathers are really, really vital to their survival.
Well, we want to just take this opportunity, Tracy Anderson, for doing what you do and to help educate the public, because we want to make sure sometimes the shearwater, no fault to themselves, gets a little bit of a bum rap. When they come over to the island of Kauai. A lot of people say it may be some sort of an inconvenience or what have you, but I hope that through people listening, that it's really no fault to the bird. It just happens to make Kauai home, and they were here a lot longer than we were, and we got to do everything we can to help these fabulous kama'aina to the island of Kauai.
They're absolutely amazing birds. What they can do, what they do, their life history is so amazing, and it would be so sad if these birds don't continue on into the future. Their sounds at night, you might be lucky enough to hear what sounds somewhat like a donkey flying overhead, their braying call, and I can't replicate it very well, so I'm not going to attempt to for you. But if they're flying over and you hear it, that's amazing, because you just heard one transiting to or from its burrow in the mountains. So that's pretty cool.
Now, if you go, I think one time we went up to the Wailua Homesteads area up Olahena Road, or way up into the homesteads areas, and we were able at night to listen to them. Obviously, we couldn't see them, but we could hear them, just kind of like echoing throughout the gulches and the caverns and the cliffs and what have you. But like you said, it's hard to mimic a sound like that, because that's a sound that we rarely hear.
Yes, that's right. I have few colleagues that can make the sound quite well, but as I said, I'm not going to. It's very unique, and you can't mistake it for anything else.
Can you leave us with a phone number or a website if anybody has any information, or they have a bird, or they need to know how they themselves might be able to volunteer? Can you leave a website and a phone number for
Sure.
us?
You can go to the Kauai Humane Society's website, and there is a page for the Save Our Shearwaters program on there. You can also, for more information about these birds and other species that we have here on Kauai, in Hawaii, you can go to the Kauai Endangered Seabird Recovery Project's home page, and it gives some more information about the species that we have here. And a phone number that you can call if you have a downed bird and you need some advice is 635-5117.
635-5117. That's the long time number that we have, and thank you for giving us a cell phone number, because that's immediate response. On behalf of all of us on Kauai, to yourself and to your staff, we want to just say thank you for doing what you do behind the scenes, and we appreciate everything that you folks do to keep the public aware of what a special visitor that we have, and in this case, the Newell Shearwater.
Thank you very much, Dickie.